Hi, hope you are all doing well. This is my third video in a series on how to cancel or reschedule events, meetings, and trips. In my first video, I talked about the decision to cancel versus rescheduling an event and the option to make your event virtual. A couple highlights. The most important thing from that video is that you want to go slow and analyze your contract and see where you are as far as your negotiation strategy before you cancel. You don't want to just call a hotel and cancel and release the space. That does two things. Number one, it gives the hotel something valuable that they would want. If an event is canceled, they want that space back as soon as possible so they can try to create some other revenue by reselling it. Number two, it puts the hotel in control of that negotiation. It allows them to have the opening offer in the negotiation. It makes much more sense to go slow, figure out your argument, and then say, we're considering canceling. Here's what we're thinking. Here's what we'd like. And you're holding that space and you're opening negotiation. Second is, there's a huge financial advantage to rescheduling rather than canceling. Most hotels would rather postpone an event and have full revenue, especially these days, than have a canceled event with a lower cancellation penalty. And the option to go virtual is a big decision a lot of companies are doing now. There are a ton of platforms to hold a virtual event or meeting or webinar, and just choosing the right one is a big decision, very time consuming, and then the work to transition an event from live to virtual could be a full-time job depending on how much time you have. So we are actively sourcing virtual event options for our clients. We're working with our clients on negotiating cancellations for upcoming events. If you are in a situation where you're dealing with any of those, please reach out. I'm happy to help, happy to jump on the phone and talk about your situation, do a free consultation, and see if there's anything we could help with, or just chat and give you some advice. In the second video, I talked about the contract clauses that you want to look at closely. Cancellation schedule, attrition terms. Do you still have allowable attrition that you could negotiate on your behalf? Deposit schedule. How much of your money do they already have? If they have 10% of your money, you're in a different position as far as leverage for negotiation than if they have all of your money. And your force majeure clause. Do you have the right to cancel without penalty? And that could either be a clear-cut case, yes or no, or it could be a borderline subjective situation. So I want to talk about each of those different scenarios with the force majeure clause and how to handle them. So talking about the actual cancellation, before I get into the details, I want to say that with any of them, you want to be respectful of the salesperson and have a good, positive relationship with them. You want to talk about your organization or your company's past events and potential future events. Let the hotel know that you want to do, this is an annual event. We'd love to come back to your hotel in San Diego. We love your property. We were there a couple years ago. We'd love to come back and work with us so that we can continue to have a good relationship. Talk about maintaining the relationship. Talk about generating goodwill. If a hotel is very strict and says we're not allowing cancellation, you owe us your $500,000, you can say, well, that is really putting us in a position where my CEO or my client is not going to allow me to come back to your hotel with their business in the future. Work with me so that we can continue to do business together. This is a situation where an event planning company with history and relationships in the industry will probably have a little bit more success and a little bit more leverage in negotiating than an end user company that has never done business with Four Seasons or Marriott or Hyatt hotels, for example. And so that may be a place where a professional event planner may be really useful. So let's look at the different scenarios. One scenario is you have a clear right to cancel, and here's what I would do. I would put together an email with the copy and paste force majeure clause, the line that applies to your situation, and then provide some documentation showing that current travel environment or current government regulations clearly allow us to cancel an event within the terms of the force majeure clause. Provide the documentation right there in the email. I would say hereby, as of this email, per this email, we are canceling our event. We would like a full refund of all monies paid to you. This is a cancellation with no penalty. And I would say the amount that we believe we've paid you is X dollars, $326,000.52. Please refund that full amount to us within 30 days. and I would put my bank transfer information right there. This puts everything in one email. It's efficient. You've got your whole argument there, and then that can be forwarded on by your salesperson to corporate management, accounting, wherever that needs to go. Before you send that email, I like to call the salesperson and give them a heads up and say, look, unfortunately, we do have to cancel. We clearly have the right to cancel. I'm going to send the email now. Just wanted to give you a heads up so that it's not being seen by everybody in their department and they hear about it from someone else. It's a respectful thing to do so that you're being appropriate with the salesperson, and hopefully they'll be professional back with you. If you have a subjective case where it could be argued that you could cancel the event, and it could also be argued by the hotel, well, it doesn't clearly meet the force majeure clause, I take the same steps. I put my best argument in the email and say, here's what we believe, we're doing this, we're canceling, here's the documentation, etc. And I call the hotel salesperson, I present our argument, and then I send the email. I take the same steps, but I have a different expectation. In the first scenario where I believe I have the right to cancel, if they say no, I'm going to keep going at it, and I'm going to be strong with the message that we obviously have the right to cancel, and we're going to stick to that. If it's subjective, they come back and they say, well, it's this or that. I have to expect that there's going to be a negotiation, and that's what's reasonable. It would be foolish to keep fighting for something that there's clearly not hard, concrete evidence for. And sometimes there's a negotiation and you get some of what you're asking for. So those are the situations where partial credit towards a future event may be a good solution that you can settle on. The opportunity to reschedule the event without penalty is a good possibility. You could also end up saying, look, we have a difference of opinion. This can be argued either way. Let's find a place where we can meet in the middle and make this mutually beneficial. Sometimes it works, and I've been able to cancel an event, and sometimes a creative solution ends up working. But all of these are going to be better than just canceling the event and hoping for the best. If you know you don't have the ability to cancel, there's clearly no documentation that shows that you meet the force majeure clause, I take a completely different approach. I don't pretend that I have the conditions to cancel. I call the salesperson, I try to be reasonable and explain the situation. And I look for mutually beneficial. I say, you know what, you don't want the event to be canceled, I don't want the event to be canceled, but the client just is not able to do the event at this time. So let's talk about a way that we can find a mutually beneficial solution. It's unlikely the hotel is going to give you all your money back. But again, this is a situation where you may be able to postpone, get a partial refund, a credit for next year, those kinds of solutions. Also, if you don't have the right to cancel at this time, you may want to wait and see how the coronavirus situation plays itself out. It could get much worse and it could get better. If it gets worse, then there may be other clauses, there may be other things going on in the world that may create a situation where your force majeure clause does apply. So if your event is definitely canceled and at this point you have no chance of getting your money back, it might not hurt to wait a little longer based on your cancellation schedule and see if 2 weeks from now or a month from now the situation has changed. So one other thing, if you end up having to pay some cancellation penalties, you do want to see if you can use it towards a future program. And this is another time when you want to look at your attrition. If you have allowable attrition that you haven't used yet, it is reasonable to say, I want to use up all my allowable attrition before the cancellation penalty is calculated. And I want to reduce my food and beverage minimum or my food and beverage anticipated revenue by the same percentage. If you've got the option to reduce your room block in the contract, then your cancellation penalty should be calculated based on that. Anyway, so I hope some of these tips are helpful. If you're dealing with any of these situations, please feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email, send me a message. Be happy to talk, and I hope you're all holding up, and talk to you soon. Take care.